Relative clauses, also known as adjective clauses, add more information to a noun. Let's say you want to talk about parrots. Parrots are colourful, parrots live in the rainforest, parrots often squawk loudly. Some random facts about parrots. Rather than repeating yourself time and time and time again, with parrots being the subject and then you talking about them, you can combine this information into a more succinct chunk where you talk about parrots doing one thing and at the same time add in some extra embedded information. So we could say parrots, comma, which live in the rainforest, comma, often squawk loudly. Here I've taken two pieces of information with the same subject, parrot, therefore we're talking about the same noun, and I've blended them together. So that's how it looks like they're working, but actually what's happening here? If we zoom in on parrots with the relative clause after it, what you're doing here is adding a chunk of information after it, which is all about parrots. Remember that relative clauses are also called adjective clauses. And if you think about it, the bit in the commas here, which says, which live in the rainforest, what's it telling us more about? Parrots. And what do we call words and phrases that tell you more about nouns? We call them adjectives. Why is it an adjective clause? Well, it's an adjective because it describes a noun, and it's a clause because it has a subject and verb in it. What is the subject and verb in which live in the rainforest? Well, the verb is live, and who lives what lives? Which. Which? That's weird, isn't it? Because actually, what does that which mean? It means parrots. It's like we've said, parrots live in the rainforest, often squawk loudly. But we've replaced parrots with a pronoun. And this is exactly what happens in a relative clause. We use a relative pronoun, for example, which, who, where, that. This replaces the noun that's just ahead of it. So here, which means parrot. And it's for that reason that in this country we call relative clauses because they are a clause with the head of a relative pronoun. But in other places in the world, they're called adjective clauses simply because that's exactly what they do. They add detail to the noun just before them. And that's what's happening in this sentence here. Let's look at a few more examples. Mary, who lives down the street, is 54. Here, if you took who lives down the street out of the structure and think about what we'd turn it into, the who means Mary. We've replaced Mary with who, the relative pronoun. So it's like we've said Mary lives down the street, and that's what we have said. But when we pick it up and put it after Mary, we then change Mary to who, and now we have Mary, who lives down the street, is 54. The relative clause is also a subordinate clause. It's subordinate because it makes zero sense by itself. We can't just say who lives down the street as a statement. So it can be removed and the rest of the structure makes sense. Mary is 54. Why do we put commas around the relative clause? Well, when you read a sentence, you want to be able to read the subject and verb. And in the original structure, you've got Mary is 54. The verb is, the subject is Mary. We have split apart the subject and verb to then insert the modifying relative clause and to show the verb in that structure is not linked to the main clause outside. We put commas around it to separate it from the rest of the structure. And that's what a relative clause is.